Hello there, and welcome to the Urban Gardener Podcast. I'm Josh Campbell, Urban Agriculture and Natural Resources Educator.
And I'm Julia Laughlin, Oklahoma County Horticulture Educator.
This is our first official episode of the Urban Gardener Podcast. This is both an audio podcast and also a video podcast that you can check out on our YouTube channel, and you can find us on Spotify if you just want the audio podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit about ourselves and what we do, and we're going to be bringing you some timely tips for the spring and the month of April.
Yes, because of the nature of the job that Josh and I do for the Extension service, we answer calls from the public every single day, year-round. People have questions about gardening, lawn care, how to take a soil test. They need tips to help them, information and tips to help them be more successful. And so really that's why we created this podcast, so we can give you some expert tips and things that you might not know that'll help you be more successful.
Yeah, we hope to bring the tips on a at least monthly basis to you with information that's going to be very pertinent to what you are going to be hoping to accomplish, or issues that you might be needing to address right at that time in your garden or landscape.
Right. And so really in April, everyone's going back outside, Josh. Everybody's, if they don't do anything else in gardening, they start mowing their lawn and fertilizing their lawn again in April. So that's a huge thing. And one of the things that we want to talk about today is that, especially if you're sitting at home this weekend and it's Saturday and you've got questions about your lawn, is all those incredible fact sheets that we have available.
Yeah. We have a wonderful whole bunch of fact sheets, a whole database of fact sheets that are published, again, research-based information specific to Oklahoma growing conditions, specific to research that's been conducted by Oklahoma State University or at other universities that's relevant to the things that Oklahomans will be experiencing. And so, on the weekend when Julia and I aren't in the office, even though we do take thousands of calls each year, and we field questions throughout the year about gardening, we would welcome you to go dig in a little bit yourself on our fact sheet website and find some of these resources.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people learn the more that they garden is how important timing is for everything. So I can give you an example of something that I'm getting lots and lots of phone calls on right now. Is April the 1st, what should I be planting in my vegetable garden? There's so much of a renewed interest in growing food, honestly, since the pandemic. People who have never grown anything except for maybe some flowers or in their flower beds, or perhaps an herb in a pot on their porch or something, now they want to grow food for their families. They want to feel like they have a better access to fresh food. So probably one of the most common questions we'll take in early April is, can I put my tomato plants out yet? When do you put out your pepper plants? Well, what about sweet potatoes? They want to grow sweet potatoes in a pot. And don't forget on gardening too that you don't have to have a big garden in the ground. You don't have to get rid of your Bermuda grass lawn. You can put in raised beds, and you can also do container gardening, but timing's still going to be key.
Timing is key no matter what. And like you said, Julia, we can help you have success gardening, whether you're gardening on a small balcony in an apartment, or whether you have a lot of space in ground to garden. We can help you find solutions and practical advice to have success no matter where you find yourself.
Yep, so the reason I brought up this fact sheet, the Oklahoma Garden Planning Guide, this is one that actually takes you through getting ready and gives you suggestions on time to put those plants in the ground, whether they're cool season plants like cabbages and broccoli and radishes, or warm season plants like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and sweet potatoes, green beans, all of those things that are fun to grow. So this guide actually takes you through when you can put them in the ground in the spring, how far to space them. That's a question we get a lot. People are not sure whether they should put tomato plants, 2 feet apart, 4 feet apart, whatever. The recommendations are also in this fact sheet. And
for those of you who are listening to the audio only on our podcast, we will have the link to this fact sheet in the show notes. So you can look there in the show notes and find a link to access this fact sheet that Julia and I
and in fact, too, we can put this website in there too, facts.okstate.edu. You can add that with the podcast. So it is the website of the home of all of the OSU fact sheets. What's really neat is you can go in there and do a search on almost anything that you want to learn to grow, whether it's trying to figure out if it's time to fertilize your Bermuda grass, or is it time to plant a tree, and what kind of trees can I plant?
Yeah, this website is excellent. So as you can see here, if you're watching on YouTube, we've got the website behind us. You can see that there's a search bar there, and you can type in by any topic of interest to you. You can type in that search bar, and it'll generate fact sheets that are related to that search term that you put into the search bar.
Right. So if someone was wondering about lawn maintenance in this, they would put in either Bermuda grass or lawn care, and that would pop right up for them. So probably on our podcast every week, we're going to show you this slide again to remind you that are included in our podcast and in our YouTube, so you can see it and remember that those fact sheets are there for you anytime. So honestly, one of the things that Josh and I do so much of is soil sampling. And so we thought today maybe we would show you a little bit about taking soil samples and explain to you the value of that, how you take them, how you get them returned to you. And this is going to be true in any county in Oklahoma, not just in our county. We are one of 77 counties that have extension offices in them.
You can do a soil test. Actually, we do soil, water, forage, a number of tests and services that we provide. Soil is by far our most common test, but any of the 77 county extension offices can provide this service to you. So no matter where you find yourself in Oklahoma, you're not far from an office that can provide a soil test to you. And it really is so important. That's why we're talking about it right at the cusp of the spring growing season. It's a great time to start a soil test if you're going to be putting in a new garden, you're going to be renovating any of your landscape areas. Starting with a soil test is really the first step, and it's like a guide or a map to getting you where you want to go when it comes to growing successfully.
I once heard a master gardener say this, Josh. She said, I thought I knew how to garden until I learned how to fertilize. And you don't have to you can use organic fertilizers, you can use soil amendments that are organic, you can use any commercial fertilizer you want, but if you're not meeting the needs of those plants, and I can give you examples of my own gardening where I wasn't really feeding them enough to get the performance that I was hoping for, and by having a soil sample, you can pinpoint that nitrogen requirement or phosphorus or potassium and know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, and there's nothing more frustrating than not having the success that you want in your garden. And oftentimes there are certainly other issues that need to be addressed to have success in a garden setting, but oftentimes dialing in and doing a soil test and getting your fertilization right, maybe adjusting your pH a little, is all it takes to really level up and have amazing results as a gardener.
So you want to discuss how you get a good soil sample? I know I'm gonna let you give details, but for sure what we tell people all the time is when we want them to go at least 6 inches deep in an urban setting, right?
Right. So that 4 to 6 inch depth is ideal in terms of the soil that you're going to collect and bring to our office for a test. That's really where we find you get the best results in terms of the availability of nutrients that we're trying to analyze, and that's also really the main part of the root zone for most annual vegetable garden plants and turf grasses and things that we would be interested in. And so that's really where we're going to get the best results for a soil test. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can collect a soil sample. You can do it by hand with a little hand trowel. If your soil's workable enough to do that, you can take a shovel and go out into your pasture, your lawn, your garden area, and spade back the shovel and try to collect some soil at that 4 to 6 inch depth. Or you can check out a probe from our office. So we have soil probes available for checkout, which make it so easy to get soil right at that right depth. So you've got this little probe that you stick in the ground, you step your foot on it, it inserts the probe right at the right depth, and you pull it out and it gives you a core of that 4 to 6 inch depth that you can then collect from.
You know, in our office we have a couple available, but they have them in the other offices as well. So whatever county you're in, you could borrow theirs. It seems to me like that's the easiest way to do it, but if it's the weekend and you want to get it collected, a shovel works great, doesn't it? And then this idea of collecting from multiple spots. It's hard for me often to explain to people because I understand where they think they just want to go out and dig one hole. Who wouldn't want to do that? But will you explain the importance of having all these random, collecting from multiple sites within a front yard or a backyard?
Yeah, so you want the soil test, the soil that we are testing, to be representative of the area that you're interested in, right? So the soil you collect for your vegetable garden, you're going to want to do a separate collection and a separate sample than, say, the soil that you would be growing in for your lawn or your flower beds. And so you've got to think about collecting soil from what we would call a representative area. But then across that area, within that area, there can be variability in terms of pockets of nutrients and even pH. And so we want to what we call a representative sample. And so in order to get the best results and have the most accuracy with the soil test, you want to get about 15 to 20, if possible. 15 is kind of that sweet spot, cores collected from around the area in question. So if we're talking a front lawn, a yard, you would go and kind of grid it out, and you can see behind us here in this. If you're watching online in our video format, you can see here that the lawn has X's all across it, and that just kind of indicates an area where you might take a sample. So you're just trying to collect from across that area, evenly distributed across the area that you're trying to do the soil test on, and then you aggregate all that soil together, you mix it together. So you might collect from 15 spots, just a small amount of soil at that right depth, mix it all together in a bucket, and bring it to us. And we need about 2 cups volume in order to have enough soil.
We're currently asking for 2 to 3 cups. So if you have a little bit more, by the time you get it mixed up, bring us 3 cups. Really, I think it's just because the lab needs 2 cups. They reserve some of that soil in case something goes wrong.
Yep.
And then these samples will come into our office. We're only here from 8 to 4:30 during the week. At this time, that's going to way most of the county offices are going to work. You're going to have to go during business hours. So if you can leave work a little bit late or go in later, come in during the week and bring us those couple of cups of soil. We'll get everything packaged up and ship it off to the lab in Stillwater. And then the lab in Stillwater, which from what I understand is really a renowned soil lab for in this whole region. Yes, absolutely. And they'll have the results back into our office from the lab. And then if it's a horticultural type question, soil, it will come back to me. If it's an agronomic or agriculture, it'll go to Josh. We both analyze those, and then we return those results to you with recommendations.
Yeah, and we give customized recommendations. That's why when you come into the office and do a soil test, it's important that you give us as much information as you can about your goals or what you're trying to accomplish, because that allows us to give more specific recommendations. Certainly, we can give some baseline information about what you could do to improve your soil for being productive for growing. But if we know that you're trying to grow tomatoes, for instance, we can give you more specific recommendations about exactly what you would need to do to have success growing tomatoes in that soil.
Yeah, your pH may be just a little bit off, and it's very easy to create by adding some sulfur, which is real inexpensive and organic. And then you fix the pH, and you'll increase your production of tomatoes. It's amazing how well it works.
It is. So yeah, the more specific you can be with the information you give us when you bring that soil in, the better.
And at this time, the cost is still only $10 a sample. It's underwritten by
Yes,
Oklahoma State University.
we really don't. We're not in it to make money. It's a service to the people of Oklahoma. So. Not that we would discourage you from going to other labs, but we certainly feel that our soil lab is awesome, and that we provide expert service and information, and we do it at a very, very low cost. And so you would pay many, many times more than that for just about any other lab that you could find. We do it as a service to the people of Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you'll get results back usually within 2 weeks and maybe less. If it's spring, it's going to be busy. So just keep that in mind. And with those recommendations, the corrections are easy to make. It isn't difficult to fix your soil. You just might need some more nitrogen, might need to adjust your pH, and we tell you how to do that. So.
Yeah, and with the cost, some people have been afraid of the cost of fertilizer and it going up. As of now, I don't know how much that's directly impacted folks who are buying small amounts of bagged fertilizer at the box store. I haven't really kept up, but fertilizer prices will be a little higher this year just because of some of the things going on around the world. But you can still cost effectively and efficiently provide the nutrients your garden needs despite what's going on with prices. And there are, like Julia said, organic options, conventional options, bags off the shelf, and even just focusing on management practices sometimes can give you a leg up in terms of the success and the health of your soil. So lots to unpack there.
I think people are surprised by how much a soil sample helps them.
Yep.
Another thing that we really are seeing a lot of questions on are our tree planting tips. The time to plant trees is spring and fall. We know that, but you can plant almost anything in the spring. In the fall, you have to be a little bit more careful about planting broadleaf evergreens, but in the spring you can get away with almost anything. So we want you to know that tree planting is, if anything, if it's done correctly, is going to be one of the most successful things that you can do. We're going to give you a couple tips. Here's the biggest tip, I think, Josh, is to plant your planting hole twice as big as the ball, but don't go any deeper.
Absolutely.
Because you don't need to, but you need to plant it wide, but not deep.
You know, trees are much deeper rooted than other plants in our landscape, but most of their roots are going to be more surface and more lateral, and so that deep planting hole is going to give newly planted trees that workable soil that they need to quickly set roots.
And then the other thing, I know you know this too, is people don't believe this, but the tree will actually adapt better, and I'm only talking trees, not shrubs or annuals or perennials, but trees, big trees, will adapt better if you don't put any kind of additive back into that hole when you plant.
It's so tempting to go and buy a bunch of rich soil and even to buy I don't know, peat moss or other things that you can backfill that hole with.
Compost or something. Yeah.
But really your tree is going to be better served in the long term if it can adjust to the soil conditions where it's going to be planted.
Exactly. If you feel like you want to give it a little boost, you could mulch the top with some compost and that'll slowly feed. But the filled dirt that goes back into the hole really needs to just be the native soil that you took out. And that's been proven with research over and over and over again. And I understand why people make that mistake, or decide that they want to put something back because you feel like you're helping the tree, but it's better to use just the native soil when tree planting.
Julia, in your experience especially with containerized plants, how important is it to rough up or do some roughage around the ball of that plant?
I think what we find a lot with container grown plants, not so much with the ball and burlap usually because they've been dug and then you don't see it, but in container plants the roots circle. This happens with perennials too a lot. Sometimes annuals, if they've been left in the greenhouse too long, it really does help to tease them out or to prune them slightly because it keeps them from continuing to circle. So we recommend that to trees, shrubs, annuals, perennials. If they're root bound, that means they're in there real tight or they're circling, pull them out, tease them out, or give them a little bit of a clip with your shears. But we have really good fact sheets on planting and establishing trees and shrubs, and we have really good fact sheets and information on how to choose plants for Oklahoma too. That would be available if you wanted to go to the OSU website, fact sheet website, type in deciduous trees and it'll pop up. But another thing we wanted to talk about is the Oklahoma Proven. And this is a website you can go to, oklahomaproven.org, and this will be the top trees, shrubs, and annuals and perennials for Oklahoma.
And this program, if you're not familiar with it, the Oklahoma Proven program has been running continuously since 1999. It recommends, like Julia said, each year a top annual, perennial tree and shrub for Oklahoma. So what is this now, the 22nd or 23rd year of the program? And on that website, oklahomaproven.org, you can see all of the lists of Oklahoma plants that have been recommended through that program. Really a great resource, and if you're looking for some inspiration in terms
Right.
of what you might plant and what
Exactly.
tree or shrub you might select, this is a great place to start.
Yep, yeah, but I mean, I always tell people I go look at it just to get ideas.
Mhm.
It's you know, if you're looking for something new, you can pick something that we know will succeed in Oklahoma, and that's really what Josh and I are all about. We want to help you succeed. We're here for you, but we're hoping that our little broadcast for you will help you find some new tips you can use.
Yeah, gardening should be fun, but if you're not successful and you're not having the results that you want, it's not going to be something that you can sustain energy for very long. And so we hope that the tips that we give you will inspire you to get into gardening more, and to dig a little bit deeper, but also to help you have the success that you need.
And like you said, have some fun.
Have fun.
Have
That's
some
what's
fun.
really what it's about. So thank you for joining us for this first episode. We are learning to do this podcasting thing for the very first time, so we thank you for your patience with us as we navigate this. We're so excited that you are a listener. Please do click the bell icon on Spotify. That will notify you every time we release a new episode. It'll notify you. Also encourage you to go to our YouTube page, and you can also watch the video versions of these podcasts there and check out some of the other resources that we have. You can also go to our Oklahoma County OSU Extension website and stay tuned to find out all of the classes and the programs that we have going month to month. We jam pack our schedule with classes and events, and we encourage you, if you have the time and the availability of your schedule to participate, to join us. We've got lots and lots of stuff coming up. One of the things that's coming up really soon that I'm very excited about is our market gardening school.
Right.
And so you can check that out. I'll also put a link to that in this show. In the show notes, the class is a 6-week class that we do once a month over 6 months, and it's going to expose you to local farms. If you're interested in somebody that's interested in maybe growing vegetables and maybe a future inspiration for selling at farmers markets, we would encourage you to participate in this class. It's going to walk you through the ins and outs of what it takes to grow vegetables, flowers, other things to sell at local farmers markets. And so that'll be a great event coming up starting in the very beginning of April, just a few weeks from now. With that, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.